Hey everybody, this is Dave Sandoval, and this is another edition of Drop In with Dave. Drop In with Dave, as you know, is just 30 minutes of me sharing some information with you. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes I might do a demonstration. Today it's just me and the camera, me and you. And so in our last episode, we talked about protein. We were talking about proteins, and I promised we were going to go through the macro and micronutrients, and we're going to do that today. But first, I want to remind you that the whole reason I'm here is because I want to share information with you that I think could make your life better. I love to stop people's suffering. I love to help people reach new heights in their life, new pinnacles, if you will. I like to see people just happier and healthier, and that's the reason why I'm here. So this is our little drop-in. I'm going to do this as often as I can, try to post one every day, do my very best, and hope that you will tune in when you can, because my whole goal is to make your tomorrow better than your yesterday, because you were with me today. So let's get started. Again, my name's Dave Sandoval. You might know me as the author of the Green Food Bible. Hopefully you're seeing my new book, The Toxin That Came to Dinner. And you might know me as one of the founders of Purium Health Products as well, and now known as just Purium. But the bottom line is, it all starts with food. I believe the quality of our life is going to be equal to the quality of the food we eat and the air we breathe and the water we drink and the thoughts that we think. And it's my goal to protect water. It's my goal to try to fight for pure air. And of course, my lifelong goal is to improve the quality of people's life through what they put into their mouth, because we are what we eat, and the quality of our life will depend upon the quality of the food that we consume. And so let's break it down into macro and micronutrients. And by the way, whether you're paleo or whether you're keto or whether you're raw or whether you're vegan or whether you're carnivore or whether you're just somebody who wants to eat better, I want to tell you that nothing that I'm going to say should be in conflict with anything that you believe, because all I'm going to direct you to is the highest quality food on the planet for your body. And I'm going to tell you and teach you about that food and let you make your own educated decision for your own personal, your own personal thing. So I've seen a couple of shadows, so I'm going to drop a little more light on us here. Let's see if this helps a little bit. Okay, that did help a tiny bit. So anyway, again, we dropped off last time. I think we were talking about protein, and I didn't go back and watch the show, but I do want to remind you that proteins come in all different sizes and forms. And I want to tell you some of my favorite types of protein, my favorite sources of protein. And I'm going to include, raw options, vegan options, vegetarian options, and of course, meat options and animal-based options. And this is not to offend anybody, it's to serve everybody. So my favorite sources of protein, in fact, are vegan. My favorite sources of protein are, really plant-based, really close to the earth type of proteins. And so my number one protein that I personally use is called Super Amino 23. It is a supplement. It's a pre-digested protein, and it is made from pure vegan material. So it's vegan, it's non-GMO. It isn't made with any additives or binders or fillers or excipients or anything like that, but it is a pill. And so it is my favorite protein only because of what it does for my body. It increases the elasticity, of my skin. It increases the tone of my muscles. It feeds my brain. And it has zero waste. And it means that my body does not have to work to eliminate any byproduct of consuming this protein. And that's why it is my favorite protein. It's called Super Amino 23, and it is amazing. I take between 15 and 30 grams of it a day, and I just feel amazing. Now, my second favorite protein is Spirulina, and it's a pretty close second. Spirulina is not just a protein. While it is 65% protein, sometimes as low as 62 or 63, but on average it's about 65% protein. And so spirulina is a microalgae. It grows in water, but it grows in fresh water that's close to the ocean. So a little bit of salt water gets into the ocean, and in the wild, that's how it grows. But the spirulina I consume is grown in controlled tanks that are super clean, and the type of salt water and the type of water and the type of nutrients that go in are really controlled. And so super, super amazing quality food. Spirulina is, again, a microalgae that grows, and it looks like that little spring that is inside of the pin that you go click, click, and if you break it apart, there's a little spring in there. It looks like just a series of circles, and it is surrounded, its cell wall is actually glycogen. And glycogen is what our cells use as energy. It's ATP, adenosine triphosphate, or I call it available to play energy, ATP, available to play, adenosine triphosphate. It's instant, awesome, natural energy for your body. And when spirulina delivers that energy to you, it releases all the nutrients that are inside. It is a massive store of nutrients, especially beta carotene, alpha carotene, all these wonderful, excellent carotenoids that we love. And then it also has other nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin E. It has a wide variety of B vitamins as well. It's just a real nutrient powerhouse, and it's 65% protein, loaded with minerals, and it has a pigment in it that's a blue pigment called phycocyan that's really anti-inflammatory. It's really healthy for the body. It is a very unique pigment. And these dark blue pigments we find in nature, whether it's blueberries or whether it's phycocyan from spirulina, it's really, really good for us. So spirulina, it's not just protein, it's also a multivitamin. It's also a source of essential fatty acids like the ones that come from fish, the ones that come from salmon. It's found in spirulina, the exact same fat. So if you're a vegan and you're looking for salmon type of EFAs and you're looking for an amazing source of protein and nutrients, then you're going to love spirulina. Now, another really amazing source of protein that comes from the green world. Now, I love green proteins. Anytime that you eat protein, it's really good to eat greens at the same time, because the stuff that's in green food actually helps neutralize the bad stuff that happens when we digest protein. So if you read my book, The Green Food Bible, I'll talk about studies that show how eating animal protein dramatically increases your risk of colorectal cancer. But when you add a significant amount of green food to the same diet, that risk of colorectal cancer could drop dramatically. And so again, consuming animal protein raises your risk of colorectal cancer. Eating green vegetables lowers your risk of colorectal cancer. Doing the two at the same time seems to be really, really healthy. So if you're consuming animal protein, remember to eat a lot of salads and green foods and green drinks around it. So we solve that problem by having your protein come from a green food. So another example of this, one of my favorite examples, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. These are 25 to 28% protein. That's a lot of protein because you can eat a lot of those vegetables. The weight that you can eat of those vegetables is really significant. And the fact that they have all those sulfur compounds and all those nutrients in them that are really so good for your body, it just super, super turns me on that you could get such amazing quality protein from greens. I want you to look at gorillas. I want you to look, even at whales. They eat plankton. They eat algae. The gorillas eat leaves. You look at buffalo with all their masses of muscle, and we just, that classic picture of a buffalo with its muscles bristling. And what's it doing? It's sitting there eating grass. And so our next source of protein is actually 40% protein, and that's alfalfa. Alfalfa leaf juice. I put it in a lot of my green food formulas. Alfalfa leaf juice is actually 40% protein. So again, we're going down the line, And we've got the super aminos, which are 99.5% protein. We've got the spirulina that's up to 65% protein. We have alfalfa juice powder that's 40% protein. We have broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. These are 25% protein. This is really good quality protein. And I love hemp protein. There's around 40% protein as well. Your hemp protein from hemp seeds, that'll be about 40% protein. So these are some of my favorite sources of protein. You notice that they're green, okay, with the exception of the hemp seed. Now, moringa, I love moringa as a source of protein. That also is about 40% protein. And so when we're looking at these plant sources of protein, we're looking at most of them have come from sources of green food, my favorites. Now let's get into some animal sources of protein. First of all, I want to tell you that the way that we treat animals, the way that we raise animals, the way that we take food from animals in most cases is disgusting to me. I believe it should be criminal, and I think that mistreating animals just because they are going to become food for humans, that's not an excuse. I think to the contrary, because these animals are going to nourish our cells, because they're going to become part of us, I think it's incumbent in us to give those animals a really good life. That's right. I said it. We should give those lives a really good life. If we're going to eat an animal, it should live a very happy, a very healthy life, a very free life up until the time that we ask it to become part of us, okay? So if you are going to consume animal flesh, I ask you again that you demand that it be ethically raised. And there are standards that you could see, okay? And try to climb the ladder of standards. If you can, start with organic and then go to free range and then free roaming and then try to get, as high a quality as you can, constantly creating demand for that and pressure on the producers of it to create more of it, because it's only when consumers demand quality and when we learn to treat animals with respect, when we learn to treat the earth with respect, we're going to find the reason is because we respect ourselves. So if we respect ourselves and we know we are what we eat, and we're going to put an animal that's been tortured, an animal that's been mistreated, an animal that's been fed glyphosate and chemical feeds and who knows what else, that's not respect for yourself if you don't respect that animal. And if you choose to consume, animal flesh, I'm not going to judge. I make that choice myself also from time to time. There were years and years and years and years that I did not. And now when I do, I make sure that I do it respectfully and in that way. So that having been said, I love, sheep and goat, milks. I think they're really, really healthy for you. They're high in protein. Goat milk is one of my go-to sources of protein. Again, the goats don't have to die to give it to me. It's like liquid meat. It has colostrum. It has lactoferrin. It has a lot of good super immune boosting things like immunoglobulin and lactoferrin and even a little bit of colostrum throughout the entire life of the goat giving milk, unlike a cow that it's just at the beginning in the first few days. So goat milk, to me, beautiful, wonderful source of protein. It's not homogenized. It's really important to me that your dairy products not be homogenized. So just so you know, homogenization is when they take the fat in your milk and they grind it down to where it's really, really tiny so that it floats in the milk really evenly and the cream won't all rise to the top. You see that old term, the cream rises to the top. If you heard that, that's because when you make milk, the cream in the milk rises up to the top. Excuse me. So if you get raw milk, the top's all cream. You got to pull it out before you get to the milk at the bottom, and you could whip it and make whipped cream, make desserts, even make butter and all these wonderful things. But the bottom line is that if you homogenize it, it grinds it down. And when it's ground down, it easily passes through your intestinal barrier because it's so small that your intestine can't get it. If you're already suffering from a permeable or leaky gut, then this is a really bad thing. And so getting goat milk with a big fat molecule that our body can't even digest, it just acts to lubricate and stimulate the proper hormones and deliver these wonderful immune boosting compounds and lots of protein. And remember, the goats are just giving that milk. If it's a good, high quality farm, they're happy, they're free, they're eating grass, and you're getting good stuff. Now, some people know that cottage cheese is an excellent source of protein, very high in protein, and again, a passive source of animal protein. When you get into animal itself, I love fish. It's very sustainable. Salmon is my favorite fish. It's loaded with essential fatty acids. And the only thing is you got to look at that quality again. Wild caught, line caught, okay, salmon is really important. Don't listen to things like ethically raised or sustainably raised. That means farmed. And when they farm these fish, they don't swim freely. They don't swim upriver to try to lay eggs. They don't have any natural instincts. They're literally eunuchs sitting inside of these giant enclosed waterways where there's no flow. They're swimming in each other's poop constantly. And ethically raised, farm raised, sustainably raised, no. You get wild and you get line caught if you can, okay? And make sure that you're getting that quality salmon that you could get. Now there's other really high fat fish like sardines and mackerel. Mackerel are so yummy and they're also high in fat. And again, for that same fat, if you're a vegan, spirulina has that same fat that you find in salmon. Now, I personally am absolutely not ever going to, and I don't recommend the consumption of pork. Pork is raised. There's no real clean way to raise pigs for commercial production. And so that is a personal choice. If you do choose to consume that, I would hope you would choose organic. I would hope it would be uncured. Cured meats are poison. Cured meats are cancer causing. The reason why more and more companies are coming out with uncured version of meats is because eventually they're going to expose that all those cured meats for all those years were causing cancer. I could guarantee you, I could see the future. This is going to happen. So buy uncured meats if you're going to, but look up what happens to pork. Look up, the trichinosis. Look up the parasites. Look up the different things that, the difficulty your body has digesting pork fat, and just be careful if you are going to consume the little oinkies. Okay. If it comes to, cattle, I think that, if you get a really good quality bison, if you get a really good quality, organic, grass-fed, free range, free roaming, then I would say that would be your quality that you should go to. The same thing should be for your fowl. Always as free roaming, as organic as you could get it, as fresh as you could get it. And remember, a beautiful passive source of protein. If you want animal protein, you could get cheese, you could get cottage cheese, you could get milk, you could get eggs. And if you're right in the middle and you're like, ethically, I don't want to see an animal die, but I still need animal protein because I might be PETA, I might be, craving that, then there's a middle road for you. And remember, this show is without judgment. For years, I was vegan, vegetarian, raw food, fruitarian. I was very judgmental. The more choices I made to exclude different foods in my life, the more I also found I was excluding love and connection and friendship because I was so judgmental. So wherever you are in your food journey, and there's so many different choices for us to make, wherever you are in your food journey, just make sure that it's your journey, that you're not pushing that on other people, that other people, you need to meet them where they are. And if you have an opinion, then share it with them with love. Tell them the decision I made is this, and here's the reason why I made that decision. But if you want a pork chop, I'll cook it for you because I don't judge. I love unconditionally, okay, and without judgment. If you could love unconditionally and without judgment, then you're not only going to serve everybody around you, you're going to serve yourself as well. So your choices are going to change. There was a time you were different than you are today. There's going to be a time when you're going to be different than you are now. And so you're really just judging yourself when you go to judge anybody because you're going to change. So that's a little diversion, a little lesson. And let's get past protein though and into carbohydrates. We're going to cover carbohydrates, we're going to cover fats, and I want to remind you that my name is David Sandoval, and it doesn't matter. We're going to take our time. This is a slow roll. This is a drop in with Dave. We're going to talk about some philosophy. I may digress. I may go from talking about protein to talking about, the meteor shower that I sat under last night under these beautiful skies. I might talk about a full moon that I experienced as well, because I'm living here in this incredible, beautiful Native Springs oasis. It is, easy to get distracted. And when we're talking about nutrition, you can't get far from that feeling of connection to the land. Because when we eat foods that grow in the earth, when we eat foods that are roots like beets and carrots and sweet potatoes, these are going to be pulling that energy, that nice root energy. We talk about our root chakra. Let's eat some root vegetables, you know what I mean, and get connected to the earth. Let's do a little earthing. Let's take off our shoes and walk and let that energy, that magnetism of the earth come up through our feet and feel good. And so we're going to move past proteins, and we're going to get into carbohydrates. And all carbohydrates are not created equal. And our body really, really, really needs carbohydrates. Our bodies crave carbohydrates, and low carbohydrate diets are fine. That's great. The thing is that at some point your body must have glucose. You have to understand that glycogen is what we feed our cells. Glycogen is adenosine triphosphate, okay? And adenosine triphosphate, I just noticed that the light's really making my nose shine. I look like Rudolph the white-nosed reindeer here, so I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. And maybe that's why they use that powder stuff on your nose. But the bottom line is that we have these different sources of carbohydrates. And carbohydrates ultimately are our source of glucose. The long chains of glucose are called carbohydrate. And so sugar and carbohydrate are made out of the same thing, glucose. The only difference is how long of a chain of glucose is there. So if you have little glucose chains, like disaccharides, that's super, super, super short. Those are actually what our bacteria use to eat. Those little tiny disaccharides, they're almost, they're typically, found in a lot of our, soluble fibers and stuff. We're gonna have these disaccharides, really, really healthy for you. But then when you start getting into more chains of sugar, more chains of glucose, you get into these simple sugars, and that's where you get dangerous. That's where you get your really, really quickly absorbed, quickly digested, quick into the blood, type of transfer. And as you get more complex, as you start getting, into 12 and above links of glucose, now you're talking about a slower carbohydrate. When you get into 16 links, or you're getting into the slow, really, really, and then when you get into the super high numbers like 18, now it's a really slow gummy carbohydrate that's going to turn into a gel and sit in your body and only break down slowly as your body needs glucose. And that's why I'm saying, if you simply say that all carbohydrates are bad, and again, this is not to judge anybody who's doing paleo or keto or anything like that, but if you do not get carbohydrates, you'll die. It's that simple. And so your body ultimately is going to need glucose, because glycogen, the very fuel for our cells, is glucose and oxygen. Glycogen needs glucose to be created. And so if you don't have a source of glucose, you're not going to be healthy. Your body needs protein, it needs carbohydrate, it needs fat, and it needs fiber. And those are my core 4 nutrients. Those are the macronutrients. On the micro side, you need all your vitamins, your minerals, your pigments, your antioxidants, all of that wonderful stuff. There's thousands of those things. But on the upside, on the macronutrients, protein, fats, carbohydrate, and fiber. Okay? And so let's talk carbs. My favorite sources of carbohydrates are the ones that break down slowly, but they're also the ones that give us a lot of nutrients. Now, there's a lot of debate now about whether you should ever eat any seeds, nuts, grains, beans, legumes. Do they have lectins? Do they have phytates? Do they have anti-nutrients? What's the story? So I want to tell you that as long as your gut microbiome is working, as long as you have a strong digestive gut, then all of this stuff is actually okay. It just depends on how much you eat and what else you eat. Let me give you an example. If you're worried about anti-nutrients, that they're neutralized with high beta carotene and high vitamin C foods, aka fruits and vegetables. So if you're going to eat grains, if you're going to have seeds, if you're going to have nuts, if you're going to eat legumes, you simply need to make sure you're also getting a substantial amount of fruits and vegetables. When you get that vitamin C and the beta carotene, it's going to neutralize those anti-nutrients, the lectins and the phytates and things like that. And so my favorite source of carbohydrates are going to come from simple foods like vegetables. Vegetables have a great source of carbohydrate. Green vegetables, cauliflower, broccoli, all of these things I've already talked about that are high in protein. They also have a really, really wonderful balance of carbohydrates. And so to get your carbohydrates from vegetable matter if you can. And if you can't, look for fruits. And you go, but fruits have so much sugar. Well, guess what? The deeper, darker, pigmented fruits that you eat, things like berries and fruits, these are going to be really, really, cherries and berries and deep red, blue, orange pigmented fruits. These are going to be really, really healthy for you. And even though they have sugar in them, the types of sugar they have are bound into fibers. And so taking fruit juices, not necessarily my thing, but eating whole fruits, absolutely. If you're going to have fruit juice, remember apple juice, raw apple juice, could help clean away bone spurs in your body as an acid that actually cleans out your body. You could do a raw apple juice fast for 2 or 3 days, and so many aches and pains in your body will go away. Now, in addition to fruits and vegetables as carbohydrates, you could use things like oats, chia seeds, flax seeds. These have these gummy carbohydrates. These gummy carbohydrates are the ones that stick and help create really healthy cholesterol levels. They get rid of all the old nasty cholesterol that's not serving your body well anymore, and they really balance that cholesterol, and they're super, super slow burning as well. Now, some of my other favorite sources of carbohydrates actually have to do with like sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes as a source of carbohydrate. They are my favorite tuber to eat, and I have lots and lots of recipes that I'm creating around sweet potatoes that I would love to share with you. We are coming to the end of this segment. We're just about through with carbohydrates. I'm going to jump back in our next show, wrap up carbohydrates, get into fats and fiber before we talk about micronutrients. But I've got a couple of cool shows that might jump in between. My name's David Sandoval. This is Drop In with Dave. We're coming up to Women's Health Month. I'm going to have an entire month dedicated to women's health issues. So stay tuned to that, because remember, I hope that your tomorrow will be better than your yesterday because you just spent 30 minutes with me today. This is David Sandoval saying until next time, have an amazing, incredible, blessed day. And remember, the quality of your life will be equal to the quality of your food.